Alright, I got my AMC crankshaft back from the machine shop, and I had it internally balanced with some Mallory metal. There's a total of 4 chunks of Mallory metal in this crankshaft. Looks like they had to do some welding here. One of the reasons they welded the existing hole there back up is to add weight for the internal balance. With it being internally balanced, I won't be using a weight in my balancer here. The weight was also removed from the flex plate. So it's ultimately less weight on the ends of the crankshaft for the crank to have to deal with. It's pretty filthy. They polished it after they took the bob weights off it. So I'm going to take it outside right now and wash it with some soap and water. Get it good and clean through all the oil passages. And just try to get all the crap off of it. You can see all the oil passages were chamfered, and if you look carefully, you can see crud in there. So it definitely needs a really good cleaning. And when I'm done, I'll blow it all out with compressed air and get some oil on it right away. My crank's been washed. It's as clean as I'm going to get it, blown out with compressed air. And I got the main stud kit screwed into the block hand tight as per instructions, and get all my bearing bores cleaned up, my main cap mating surfaces, and I'm getting ready to install the bearings. I'm gonna go ahead and wash these with soap and water and blow them off with compressed air as well before I set them in there. I was watching one guy's video and he's all like, there's a scratch in the bearing, that bearing can't be used. And he did this to like 5 or 6 different bearings he had. I can't even feel the scratch here, but pretty sure these bearings can be dressed up. Pretty tough to see here, but this thrust bearing has a raised burr on it. I'm just gonna take a fine file and knock that off to try to prevent any sort of distortion. And all these bearings, I'm basically checking the fronts and the backs, make sure they lay in there nice. Here's that same bearing with the bump removed. It was right in this corner here. A couple strokes and good to go. Not really sure what this black stuff is here on the bearing. That may have intentionally been brushed on there by the manufacturer, but I'm gonna try to clean that off anyway. And all the bearings are gonna get the old ultra slick treatment. All the bearings with the holes are obviously going towards the block. Here's the stud kit I'm using. This block was align honed with these studs and these main caps, so it's pretty critical you measure your crank and your main bearing bores and even plastic gauge it in the end, make sure you got enough clearance. I got some ARP assembly lube on these threads right now. I get it on the washers and get those torqued down. I'm step torquing it here in 3 equal increments from the inside out. Back them off with a regular wrench. Don't tax your torque wrench. Looking at the old plastic gauge here, all my clearances are about 3/1000ths, which is pretty good for what I'm going to be doing here. I'm going to get this crank out of here now, lube up them bearings, and start putting it back together, getting it ready for final assembly. Getting ready to put the rear main seal in, and it's going to go in the last groove. The groove before that obviously exhausts the oil pressure. Before I put the crank in, I'm going to put this half of the rear main seal in with this lip towards the inside, so as the oil pressure pushes against it, it will seal better. There'll be a dab of RTV at each end of it when the main cap goes on. Here I have all the bearings lubed up, including the ends of the thrust bearing, and I'll drop the crank in, hopefully for the final time. Here I'm just going to lever it forward and back a little bit to try to line up the thrust bearings. It should be pretty lined up the way it is, but I'm going to torque her down now, and then we'll check some end play. Here I'm checking crankshaft end play, just gently levering it forward and back. Got my dial indicator set up there. I'll give you a zoom on what we got. Good enough for me. I was just going to take a minute to talk about this tool. I bought this a while ago. It's a Proform tool, and it's really nice for this and checking valve geometry. Must have for engine builder's toolbox.
The reason he prefers this new tool compared to the old magnetic style, which works, but it's a lot more sturdy. It's steady and it's easier to set up. You can just see how it's got smooth 90-degree angles. You tighten it up, it's locked up solid. Whereas when you're working with these arms and tightening up, clamping devices, trying to get the right angle, it makes it more difficult. This is really nice and fast.